Hey everyone, welcome to Creators Anonymous. I'm Seth, and these are my co-hosts, James and Sawyer.
Hey.
Hello.
On today's show, we have Kevin from Lifeway Church. Kevin is the current youth pastor and one of our good friends, so say hello, Kevin.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for having me on the show.
Definitely, we're super excited to have you. So thanks for coming on to the podcast, Kevin. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your story?
Yeah, for sure. So I was born in Saudi Arabia because my dad was military, and so we moved around a lot. My folks lived in Saudi for like 9 years, but we left when I was like 2 or 3 or something like that. We moved back to the States, to New Orleans, where my family's from. And then because of the military life, we moved around a lot. So lived in New Orleans and Florida. Then when I was in 4th grade, we moved to Germany, and that's where I spent the majority of my upbringing was in Germany. I was there for about 9 years. So definitely like my formative years were all Germany. And then after that, we came to California for a year where I finished up high school, and then I went to college in Portland, Oregon, at Multnomah University, and that's where I met my wife. We both were studying Bible and theology and global studies, and so after college, we lived in Portland for a little while, and then Lifeway Church invited me up to come on staff as the youth director, and so came up here, and I've been here it's actually almost been 2 years. It'll be 2 years in May that I've been on staff, so it's pretty crazy. It's going fast.
I feel like you guys just got out of college like 6 months ago.
Yeah, it feels like that for me too. Forget how old I am.
Do you mind telling us a little bit about your testimony about like how you became a Christian?
Yeah, totally. So I grew up in I did grow up in a Christian, youngest of 6, and so we grew up going to church and grew up doing a lot of like Christian stuff. My dad was actually Catholic and my mom was Southern Baptist, and so I remember growing up and kind of doing both. Like we would go to mass sometimes, other times like my mom would be the cook at the Baptist church down the street for a little while. So but I never really like thought anything of it, and it wasn't until I got to middle school that I started I started acting out more, and I think acting into like my true sinful nature. So I started dating a lot, started like messing around with girls, things like that. But then I remember we were at church one Sunday, and it was in the summer, and the youth pastor was getting up to like give a report of a recent like summer camp that they went to. And I was just like, man, that sounds fun. Like I'm super bored. I want to do something fun. That sounds fun. I'm going to start going to youth group. Had no idea what it was. I don't even think I really like understood that it was like a religious thing, but I started going to youth group when I was in 7th grade and immediately got involved. I was part of the worship band. I was part of the like core team. I wasn't like on leadership or anything, but I was just constantly there helping out, doing stuff, participating. And I kept going because there was a lot of cute girls that went, and that was definitely like a big motivation for me. And then about a year later that it was Valentine's Day, and our youth group would do this big like 3-day retreat for the middle schoolers on Valentine's Day, and a team actually from Multnomah University flew over to Germany to put on this camp every year. And so it was at that camp that I remember just like hearing the gospel story, and it was as if I don't remember hearing the name of Jesus until I got to that point in my life. Obviously I did hear the name a lot, and I heard the stories, and like my mom says, I grew up going to Awana. I have no memory of that stuff, but then it was like middle school. It was like something clicked for me, and I remember just like starting to bawl during this worship time. And I was like I was an 8th grade kid trying to be a cool kid, so I like immediately got out of the row, and I went back to my small group leader, and he just talked to me about the gospel and about Jesus. And then after that night, they like dismissed everybody, but they said, if you want to stay back and talk, you can. And so I remember going back and just staying in like the tent worship area and talking to this guy who was Duct Tape Man, because the whole theme of the conference was a superheroes theme, and so he was Duct Tape Man. So I remember praying with Duct Tape Man when I became a Christian, and talking to him and my small group leader and my youth pastor and all that stuff. So coincidentally, Duct Tape Man actually and I are still friends. His name's Anthony. Him and his wife are awesome. They're actually some of our supporters and super great people.
You can say Duct Tape Man really stuck around.
Yes. Couldn't get him off.
I'm here all week, guys. I'm here all week.
Yeah, so the rest is history, moved to high school, started getting more and more involved in youth groups, started changing a lot of things in my life, really developing a passion for ministry and for the gospel and things like that.
Nice. Well, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
What specifically helped inspire or motivate you for a youth pastor while growing up? Or to be a youth pastor while you're growing up?
Yeah, for sure. It's actually, it's kind of funny. So I am a firm believer that youth ministry is not a stepping stone ministry. Like you see a lot of times you're the youth pastor for 5 years and then you become the senior pastor. I don't think that's what youth ministry is or what it should be used for. But coincidentally, that's kind of what I'm using it for. So even though I've always loved youth ministry, I became a Christian because of youth ministry. Most of my experience is working with youth. I actually never really thought of myself as working as a youth pastor or youth director or anything like that. But it was during the support raising process to go on the mission field that Lifeway approached us to offer us this position. And it was my wife Rachel and I we went away for a weekend and we actually prayed and fasted and worshiped to try to discern whether or not we should actually take this position, because I never saw myself as a youth pastor. And it was through that process and then talking to our church in Portland, we brought it to the elders there and we were talking to them. We were talking to some of my friends and family, and it kind of just seemed like God was opening up this door and leading us here. And so even though I never imagined myself being a youth director, I didn't go to school to be a youth director specifically, though I did do some youth ministry classes and things like that. And I always helped out in youth ministry. I never really planned it, but it kind of just happened and God opened up this door and we are just trying to faithfully follow him. So that brings me to here.
Well, in that same grain, now that you are where you are, what keeps you inspired to be a youth pastor currently?
Yeah, for sure. A lot of times people think that our motivation to do ministry should be our love for the people that we're serving, our love for the students and things like that. But recently I heard this speaker by the name of Dick Brogdon, and he said that it shouldn't be and really it can't be our love for the people that motivates us in ministry. If that's the case, then what happens on those days that we don't love them? It should rather be our love for God that motivates us. And so I think for me, that's really what motivates me is my love and devotion for Jesus and for God just keeps me pushing forward to do this ministry. Of course, I love the students and I love the people I work with and things like that, but students aren't always the best. And so sometimes it can get discouraging or get frustrating or annoying or whatever, but it's my firm belief that I am where God has called me to be that is motivating me forward and helps me stay focused on the mission at hand,
Awesome. Is there a particular story that sticks out to you from something that you've done in youth ministry?
Yeah, man, I feel like I'll get random memories here and there. There's little stories little things that happen that are exciting or that motivate us or that are just so funny of the students doing. But I think one that comes to mind recently was we've been doing a series at youth group called How to, What Is, and Why, where we're just trying to answer some of these things about our faith that the students maybe don't think about that often, or they don't necessarily see the biblical reason behind or whatever. So we were talking about some of these things, and then for 1 week we were talking about communion and what communion is, the importance of communion, all this stuff, who can take communion. And I was really upfront with them that communion is for people who have a relationship with Jesus. And so I told the students straight up, I was like, hey, if you don't have a relationship with Jesus, don't take communion tonight. This is just for people who have a relationship. If you don't, pray, maybe this is a night that you can come to faith or, whatever. And so we did our whole message, we did youth group, and then we took communion, and a handful of students chose to participate, which I was super stoked about because I appreciated that they respected that. But one girl so we took communion, everybody went to small groups. after small group, she came out bawling, and she had just made a profession of faith and wanted to take her first communion now. So me, Rachel, and her small group leaders and her got to take communion together, and that was just a really sweet time to see this student. Like you could tell she wasn't just making this up or didn't want to just do this to be cool. It was really the Holy Spirit moving in her heart. So that was definitely one of the cooler moments of youth ministry so far. But there's always like fun stuff that happens too, like just the shenanigans we get into with the students, and I like to mess with the students and wrestle them a lot. And there was this one time at middle school youth group, I had like 5 of the middle school guys trying to tackle me down, and I was just like beating them with a pool noodle, just like whipping on them, throwing them around, and then they would come at me. And so there's the fun stuff like that too that I enjoy. So.
You just give me flashbacks of my grandmother yelling at me to get out of the kitchen, or she beat me with a wet noodle.
Exactly. Yeah, I am your grandmother, so
What are you doing on a computer? You're 93 years old. So Kev, what do you think it takes to be a youth pastor? Like, what level of dedication? Somebody out there is wanting to be prepared to be a youth pastor. What do they need to do?
Yeah, I'm a firm believer of calling, that people are called into different positions. And I'm a firm believer that it's our spiritual gifts that God uses, and spiritual gifts aren't just like the things that we're passionate about or the things we're good at. Like, I'm naturally extroverted. That doesn't mean that my extroversion is a spiritual gift necessarily. I think what makes it a spiritual gift is when I am living my life out in a local church body and I see a need and God brings something up inside of me to help satisfy that need. And so I think for anybody who's interested in doing youth ministry, starting with a lot of prayer to figure out what, like, are you actually called to this? And then you just start doing it. Like, I think, get involved in your local church, your local youth group, start learning from people around you, like from other youth pastors, other churches, things like that. And as you're looking into it, you'll start to see what the needs are in your local church and then how you can help fill those needs. And it does take a lot. I mean, it takes a lot of dedication. Like anything, it takes a lot of dedication, a lot of hard work. You got to be willing to, this is my wife and I, this is like our job and it's our livelihood and it's our living. And like, so if I get a call from a student in the middle of the night, I answer that call and I talk to them. I have good boundaries and stuff like that, but like, we're here when people need us. We're here for, we're here for the students to point them to Jesus. It also takes a lot of like personal preparation and motivation. So like, I need to be reading my Bible. I need to be studying. I need to be talking to other youth pastors and bettering myself to keep working. Like, I don't think you can be stagnant as a youth pastor. Like, you can't just be doing the same thing day in, day out without like prayerfully looking for how you can grow, whether that's growing the students, growing yourself, growing your ministry, and not even just numbers wise, but like growing the people in your ministry and stuff like that. So you definitely have to be willing to do a lot of that hard work. So
okay, so on that note with the hard work and everything, what are some of the challenges you face as a youth pastor?
Yeah, staying relevant is hard. It's hard to it's hard to walk the balance of like, how do you stay relevant and how do you like encourage the students to care, but then also you don't want to force them or try to be something you're not. So like, I'm not doing the TikTok dances or like, it's not my style. But I'm still trying to like,
you gotta stay lit.
I know. I tell them the only dance I'll do in front of them is the stanky leg, and they hate it. But
no, you gotta
like,
out the Macarena.
Yeah, exactly. But like, I gotta figure out what's the balance of like knowing what TikTok is and like being on TikTok or like being relevant to meet the students where they are. Rachel read a book not too long ago about how like nowadays, like when we were growing up, we would go to the mall to hang out. Like, I don't know if you guys did that. I would go to the mall after school and we would all hang out in the food court. Now students are hanging out on Snapchat. Like, they're hanging out. That is their mall. I forget the name of the book, but it was super. I think that was just eye-opening. So I need to be able to go to where the students are to meet them where they are, but then also draw them into the gospel. And that's hard sometimes because students, sometimes they don't care. Sometimes they're not interested. Sometimes they can be really mean and hurtful and like push you away, but it's my job to still be there for them and prayerfully, praying for them that someday it's going to click for them and they're going to want to come back and ask questions or grow in their faith. And so that gets difficult at times. It can get discouraging. But
speaking of staying relevant, have you ever heard of the VR preacher?
Yes, I've heard of the VR church. Is that the same thing?
Yeah, they live in the PlayStation VR chat world.
Yeah.
And every Sunday he's in there and he's preaching a service, but
So
changes
funny.
his avatar. He changes his avatar every week, and he'll take submissions on what his avatar should be. And I was dying watching one video because he's just this giant Gundam just preaching the word.
Oh
And
my god.
he's like towering over everything. It was hilarious.
That's so funny. That's so funny. Yeah, I'm definitely I'm not that cool yet.
Yeah.
We gotta get you a PlayStation and a PlayStation VR.
Oh my god.
Exactly. I will gladly accept that if you want to give me one.
Wow. And where is your Kickstarter for this?
Yeah.
Well, in the same vein of it, it's definitely not in the same region, though. What are some of the tools that help you with youth ministry?
Yeah. So Download Youth Ministry is like by far the best resource out there for any youth ministry thing. It was started by Doug Fields and Josh Griffin, and it's like it's awesome. They have a whole website, all these resources, a ton of them free. They have things like this app called Sidekick. That's an awesome like tool for playing games at youth group. They have support. They have training for student leaders, for adults, for pastors. They have like pre-made lessons that you can buy and modify to make into your own. They have virtually anything you could need to do youth ministry. In fact, I actually was on a call yesterday. It was a Zoom call with like over 250 youth pastors. There's these guys called the Skit Guys. I don't know if you're familiar with them.
They're awesome.
Yeah,
I want to
so-
interview them.
So they had the Skit Guys on the call, and we're all in a Zoom call with the Skit Guys, getting to hear from them, and they were giving away free stuff and raffles. It was a lot of fun. I think last week actually they had Nick Foles on. He was the quarterback for the Bears, I think, who won the Super Bowl last year. But he's a believer.
Definitely
He's
not the Bears.
was it? Who was it?
Who's
Was
not
it the
the
Patriots?
Bears?
Who's
Who's
Nick?
not the
I don't know.
Patriots?
I thought it was Kansas City.
Maybe. I don't know, but Nick Foles is a cool guy, and he works with youth ministry a lot too. I think he said when he gets done with football, he's going to just become a youth pastor.
Nice. Well,
That'd be cool.
as a quick little interlude here, I'm just going to let you guys know that anybody listening to this podcast, we are not football people.
Yes.
So don't
I'm not
don't
either.
at us, please. Don't at us.
I don't mind
Yeah.
getting knocked to the ground playing football with friends, but
I enjoy football.
I'm just saying, I can't name players. I mean, I enjoy
Oh.
watching the games, but don't ask me stats because I know nothing.
So,
Okay, his
Uh,
team is the Chicago. I just looked it up. Nick Foles. He is the Chicago Bears. That's his team.
Oh, hey, right.
yeah.
the
So,
Bears.
the Bears, yes. Didn't win the Super Bowl
Yeah.
last year.
And now Seth's Minnesota.
No, didn't he? He just won the Super Bowl though, didn't he?
I don't think the Bears
It was
won.
definitely
I swear
not
to
the
God,
Bears.
last year it was Kansas City.
Hold on. I'm gonna. Where was he? Maybe that's just his current team.
Who was it? It was the 49ers who got squashed by the Broncos? No, Broncos got not. Titans?
Kansas City Chiefs.
Chiefs. It was the Chiefs.
Boom.
Okay, never mind.
Who won the last Super Bowl?
It was
Kansas
the Kansas
Chiefs.
City Chiefs.
I may be out of it, but I'm not that far out of it.
Yeah.
Well, then maybe it was a few years ago, because this says Nick Foles is an American football quarterback for the Chicago Bears. He played college football. I don't care. Now I can't find it. He was playing for the Eagles when he won the Super Bowl.
Okay. God.
And 20, yeah, so he that's where he won the Super Bowl, was with the Eagles when they defeated the Patriots.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, I'm glad we cleared that up. But back to your original
Even-
question.
Yes.
It was Download Youth Ministry though. But yeah, Nick Foles was on the Zoom call last week, I think. But they offer like great resources. It's a great community. I'm on the Facebook page, and there's like over 11,000 youth workers on the Facebook page. So they just have a ton of resources.
Check out a podcast called The Good Morning Guys.
Will do.
They're missionaries that do video game stuff.
Oh, nice.
Bring them up so you can see them. Right here.
Okay.
Can you see that?
Yeah, a little bit.
I'll send you a screenshot.
I think I found him.
Yeah. Turns out
Jonathan.
Oh, yeah. So Lucas, Patrick, Mark, and Ronnie. Good morning, guys. But yeah, they're some good guys. They're a few of them do ministry stuff, so
yeah,
I definitely want to get them on the podcast sometime.
What's one question the youth should be asking today that they don't in general?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I was thinking about that question. It's hard because I feel like youth today are either like they're super on it and they're asking great questions. They're really trying to like find good answers, or they're just like super apathetic to everything and they just don't care, and they're not motivated to do anything and they just want to play video games and like hang out. So it's like this weird balance of, I think more so it's instead of trying to get the student to ask the right question, it's just drawing them out a little bit and getting them to like see their motivation and see like the questions they are asking have a lot of potential to work out some of these problems that they see in the world and in their lives and things like that. But I would say for the most part, I don't remember where I heard this or where I read this, but like when you look at Gen Z leaving the church, this article said that students today aren't asking if Jesus is real. They're asking if Jesus is good. And I think that's a big difference, because I don't know about you guys, for my generation, I feel like a lot of it was like, does Jesus even exist? Does God exist? Is the Bible true? And I think students are asking some of that, but more importantly, they're seeing like political Christianity. They're seeing like how so-called Christianity is treating homosexuals or transgender people. They're seeing how negative like the media portrays Christianity. So for them, they're just trying to figure out, okay, is this actually even good? Is it worth it? And so I think students need to ask themselves really like, what do they believe and why? Some students will ask that, and I think are. Others are just like going with the flow of what society is saying. But yeah, I would say that's probably like a big one that not only students, but I think we all need to ask ourselves, like, what do we actually believe and why? And then what are we willing to do with those beliefs? Jesus bids us to come and die, and so are we willing to do that,
Yeah, that's one thing I see in the media a lot is people I guess you can blame the news for it, but they only want to talk about the bad things Christians are doing right now. And you never hear about Christians come together to donate food. You never hear about the fact that all the food banks that are supplying people right now during the time that we're living in with food, but they're all Christian ran food banks. They're not saying they're Christian ran food banks. They're like, hey, people are lined up at food banks to get food because the president can't get us out of this thing. Nobody's developing a vaccine. Like, yeah. They specifically leave out the good stuff that Christians are doing, and they only talk about the bad stuff. So I can honestly see where that question comes from. Is Jesus good? Because look at what you see on the media.
Yeah,
so
you see people
I can completely understand that.
Yeah, they're supposedly followers of Jesus that are acting not good. And so that's where I think students need to like ask the question of like, who is Jesus? What does he actually say? And so that's, honestly, like a big part of my job is just trying to get students to read their Bibles, helping them read their Bibles, helping them know how to read it, how to like know and understand what it's saying, and then how to discern what it means for their lives. But honestly, I'm blown away by students a lot of times with the questions that they are asking, or like the thoughts that they have, the ideas that they have. I think they have a lot of potential that they're not always often given. Like people, kind of just push youth to the side, but I think that they are one of our greatest resources for the church and for ministry, and it's more a matter of just like empowering them to to live into their callings now,
Yeah.
So kind of speaking into that tone right there. So how do you lead and encourage students to let their light shine without fear?
Yeah, I think a big part of it is trying to create an atmosphere within our youth ministry where students can be themselves, and they can like bring in their worries and their fears in a judgment-free area that they can have a place to like share with me and Rachel what they're feeling, what they're thinking, and know that we're not going to like push them away or not going to think less of them or not, anything like that. I think it starts there, and then encouraging them as they're being refined in that to like have confidence in who God says they are. So that starts with, actually sharing with them who God says they are, and then helping them believe that and then live into that. And then I think that the more a student can remember who God says they are, the more able they are going to be to do whatever, let their light shine, as you said, So that's why in our youth ministry, we give a lot of roles to the students. Like we have them do a lot of stuff. It's their youth group, not mine. So I try to encourage them to like take over things, have leadership positions, things like that.
Can you give an example of some of those things?
Yeah, so we have a student leadership team that is, I think we have like 8 students on it, 8 or 9. And each student on leadership team has an area of ownership. And so what that means is that they have one area that's like their focus area. It's their ministry. It's their thing that they're spearheading and leading. Everybody does everything and everybody helps out and like participates. But each student has their own thing. So like we have a student who is overseeing our technology. So she's her and I are working together on our Instagram page and Snapchat, and like she's posting stuff and things like that. That's her area of ownership. Another student does the teaching. And so what that means is he and I work together to like try to think through lesson plans, and I try to bring him in to even teach the lessons sometimes and come up with small group questions. We have another student who's overseeing the outreach stuff. Another student is overseeing the actually the same one who's doing technology stuff. She also helps out with like the soundboard on our youth group nights and like making sure the slides are going during worship and the volume's up and right. And then other students doing hospitality, and they're like making sure snack is set out and chairs are set out and students feel welcome when they first walk in and things like that. So my goal, and I told them this, is that if there were no adult leaders at youth group would still be able to function completely normal because the student leaders are there to lead. And so they make a lot of mistakes, or they'll forget stuff, or like it's not perfect, but it's about them having the ability to start practicing and taking ownership and working some of this out. So their ideas, we try to implement things like that.
That's also a good way of teaching them accountability and, believe it or not, job skills, because like the girl you have on media and social media stuff, that's a job skill. Like people make good money just being social media moguls.
For sure. And that's even what she said. She was like, I like this stuff. I want to get better at it. So it's like, dude, let's do it. Let's use, we're going to teach you how, and we're going to give you an avenue to do that and live into it. So that's awesome,
All right, maybe I might get some lessons from you on social media.
Yeah.
Hey, man, I'm trying to get this podcast in front of more people, so with like messages like this and yours can be seen. So
For sure.
Yeah, definitely. And I hate Instagram, so somebody else can do that one.
I love Instagram. I hate Snapchat. Instagram's where it's at.
I don't like Snapchat. I don't like Instagram. I like Twitter. I'm tolerable with Facebook, and yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, I had a youth group TikTok, but I deleted it. I just wasn't a fan of TikTok. But that's what the students have now. So.
I like TikTok for all the creators that are on it. There's just a buttload of creative people and cosplayers and all that stuff. And like, I really don't like all the TikTok dances and everything. And usually I delete those ones that are just all dances and not like, hey, this is what you do
creative things.
Yeah, I like seeing the creative process.
For sure.
And there's a buttload of blacksmiths on there.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Of all things, freaking
Yeah.
blacksmiths. Big burly guys with beards.
Oh my gosh.
That's awesome.
Do you think students facing their fears is a good thing or a bad thing?
Yeah, I
Just
think it's
in
definitely a
general.
good thing. Yeah, I think it's definitely good. It's like, anything worth doing is going to be hard in life, and so if students can start doing hard things now and overcoming their fears, overcoming anxieties, and I think they're just going to grow in their potential. So I definitely think it's a good thing. That's why we try to push students, in a healthy way and in a healthy environment, but there's for sure can be a bad way of doing stuff. Like I'm not a fan. If you're afraid of drowning, I don't think that you should like just jump out into the water by yourself with like no help or anything, but at the same time, if you are afraid of swimming, like I'll go hang out with you at the pool and let's swim. And so I think that like there's healthy ways of doing it, but I think overall it's definitely better than cowering away from fears.
So, speaking of challenges, is there a particular story about helping a student through a challenge that kind of sticks out to you that you were like, whoa, hey, like I did this, or that was just
Yeah.
that stuck out really well?
Yeah, this isn't necessarily something I did, but it's something that I helped one of my students do. So we have one of our middle school guys is dyslexic and has some learning issues, things like that. So he hates reading out loud, and so we try to always include him in it and give him an opportunity to read and give him bite-sized sections that he can read out loud. But during one of our retreats or something, I don't even remember the event that we were doing, but we had a devotional time where students had to go and we had these little pamphlets that they had to read and reflect and respond to. And it was a lot of words. And so that the boy came up to me and he was like, I don't think I can do this. Like, I can't read this. And so I was like, dude, totally understand. And so I brought in one of the high school guys to go do the assignment with him. And so those two guys went and they sat down and they read it together. And the high schooler helped like explain it to him. He patiently like sat there while he thought through the stuff, and then he wrote stuff down for him. And I just thought that was a really cool way of like that student I could have just been like, hey, let's, why don't you just sit here with me and just stay quiet and, or whatever. But instead, I encouraged one of our other students to work with them. And so now those two guys had a bond and they got to work together. And I don't think they completed the assignment, but like they did a lot of it. And like that, I hope that will be more important for them as they look back. So that's what's first comes to mind for helping a student overcome some challenges.
Dude, that's awesome. That's cool to see you empower youth to be able to help other youth like that.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, again, I felt like I didn't do anything. I was just like, hey, go work with him and try to walk through some of this. And they just, he took it from there.
So in regards to all that, what is the most rewarding thing about doing what you do?
Yeah, I think it is seeing students take ownership of their faith and ownership of their lives. I think like we live in such a consumeristic society where it's like it's all about like what do I as a youth pastor, youth director, what do I have to offer these students? How can I create a fun place for them to come and enjoy it? And it's like, well, it's so much better when the students have ownership and they're creating the environment and they're doing stuff. And so I love when we see, when we give students opportunities and they take it and they blow you away with the quality and what they're doing. Yeah, so I think that's been just a huge thing that I've loved to see is the students take ownership of their faith.
That's awesome. That's really cool. So how are you guys doing at the moment in youth ministry with the COVID-19 outbreak?
Yeah, so it's obviously changed everything because we can't meet together in person. So we've transitioned online. So we use Zoom calls, and we actually do daily Zoom calls every day at 2 p.m. And we play a game. We do a devotional. We have giveaways and prizes. And we do it every, Monday through Friday, every day, 2 p.m. and it's an awesome way for the students to, like, even though we can't be together in person, they can still see each other face to face. And so that's been what we've done for the most part. And then for youth group, like, normal youth group has transitioned to doing YouTube Live, and so we have a YouTube Live every Thursday night, and it's so funny because it's not like we can't do the old way of youth ministry doesn't work. Like, I can't get up and like sing, like teach a lesson, and we have a time of worship, and we play a game, and then we break out into small groups. It doesn't really work on YouTube Live. So what we've been doing is doing more of like a talk show style of show, and so it's actually like Rachel and I sitting at a desk, and I'm trying to think. We have like announcements, and then we like play a game together. Like this past Thursday, it was terrible, but we did a Dr. Seuss rap battle between me and Rachel, and like it was not good at all. It was terrible, but it was like hopefully enjoyable for the students to watch. And then one benefit of all of this is because everybody's quarantined. I actually reached out to one of my mentors who lives in the Middle East, and he sent me a video teaching the lesson. So then I was talking, and I was like, all right, guys, well, we're going to hear from Scott. And then I pull up Scott onto the screen, and then Scott shares the lesson for 10 minutes. And then we go back to us. And then, so it's like more interactive. I try to have different segments. We do games where they have to text in to me. So we do like first person to text in a picture of them and their family celebrating a Thanksgiving dinner. And so then my phone just starts blowing up because all these students are like taking pictures with their families, pretending to have a Thanksgiving dinner. And like, so we'll do games like that are a little bit more interactive, but virtually, all in this like talk show style of YouTube Live. So, and then obviously just a lot of FaceTime calls with the students, a lot of phone calls, talking to them on the phone or texting them. We also created a Minecraft realm, so that we have like a Lifeway Youth Minecraft realm, so that students can all play on the same realm together, which that is a lot of fun.
That is fantastic. Yeah. I completely agree with this.
So y'all are like, yay, Minecraft, and the only thing that was going through my head was a youth version of Jerry Springer.
Yeah.
all I got was just Kevin.
Yeah. No, it is a lot of fun. It's like, it's weird doing youth group like this, but I think we're getting into a good rhythm with it. We're having a lot of students join our daily calls. Like, we're averaging probably like 12 to 15 students. Probably more like the 12 mark, students joining the calls every single day though. So that's been a lot of fun.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So I hear you guys are going overseas soon to do ministry. Are you able to talk about that at all?
Yeah, for sure. So we're going to be doing, we're in the support raising process right now to hopefully head over to Austria to work with refugees. So we're going to be working at a place that essentially functions as like a community center. And so it's, a place for refugees to come to get different services and build community. So like we do everything from, we'll have like free coffee days where we're just like drinking coffee and tea and playing board games, to like there's German classes and guitar classes and sewing classes. And we do like every Friday we rent a gym and all the guys go play either soccer and volleyball. So a lot of stuff like that. And so we'll be working with the refugees. And then one of my roles will be teaching different classes on different things like the Bible and stuff like that. And hopefully kind of doing a little bit of almost youth ministry-esque type stuff, but with all the refugees there. So so that's what we'll be doing. We're hopefully going to be heading out in the fall. But obviously, with COVID-19 right now, everything's kind of up in the air. So we're still kind of planning and moving that direction, but who knows, we're just trying to follow God faithfully. So we'll see what happens.
So are there any particular podcasts you listen to or strongly recommend other people to listen to?
Yeah, for sure. The first one that comes to mind is the Bible Project. Their podcast is awesome. It's Tim Mackey and John Collins, and like super good. I really appreciate their stuff. Really good podcast. I also like this other podcast that's just called Bible Stories. And it's just these two guys. I think they're youth pastors. I don't know, but they're really funny. And they just tell they're like 20 to 30-minute episodes, just telling different stories of the Bible. So I really like that one. And then my two non-Christian ones. So those are my two Christian ones. My two non-Christian ones right now. I really like the Great Debates. It's these three friends who are all in Hollywood, and they're all just really smart, really funny, and they just debate stuff. It's so funny. It's not always the most appropriate, but really funny debates. Like one time they had their nephews and nieces on, and they had a heated debate on whether or not dogs should be allowed on public beaches. So it's just not such a random topic, but it's really fun hearing this stuff. And then my other one is the Cold War, What We Saw, and it is a super interesting podcast all about the history of the Cold War that I've been listening to. That is super interesting. So those are my four right now. I listen to a lot of podcasts.
Yes, you do.
We'll have to go podcast for podcast challenge one day.
Yeah, you'd probably beat me on that one, but maybe a close second.
So, other than podcasts, is there a particular book you read and that has had a significant impact on your life, or how do you choose to make an impact with youth?
Yeah, for sure.
Other than that, that's the obvious one.
Actually, I have my Story of Redemption study Bible right here that I'm reading. Actually, man, I love reading. I'm a slow reader. I'm so slow, but I really enjoy it. Recently, I've read the Ruthless Elimination of Hurry by John Mark Comer, who's a pastor down in Portland. That book was really, really good. I'm currently reading Bonhoeffer, which is a fat book about Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who was a pastor, theologian, spy during World War II. That is really good. And then one of my favorite authors. Oh, what?
I'm sorry. I'm glad you resaid that name because I thought you said Bonghopper. I was like, really? You're reading that?
Bonhoeffer. That'd be so funny. Bonhoeffer.
I was like, take it back there for a second.
Yeah. Probably my two favorite pastors and authors are Francis Chan and David Platt. So David Platt wrote a book called Radical that I read in high school and then again in college and then again not too long ago. Just phenomenal book. And then Francis Chan, he most recently wrote Letters to the Church that I really enjoyed. So it was kind of controversial among some groups, but I really enjoyed the book. So all of those I'd recommend. Francis Chan and David Platt are probably the best in my opinion.
Nice. Yeah. So we're not out of time yet, but is there anyone you'd like to thank for helping you with your youth ministry, you and Rachel or anyone else?
Well, she's definitely the biggest one. I could not do it without her. She is awesome and does a lot of work, unpaid work for the church and for youth ministry. And so I'm just always super thankful for everything she does. She brings a whole new aspect to it and a lot of wisdom to it that I would not have. So definitely makes me better. And then I'm thankful for the church too. I mean, I'm 24 years old, fresh out of college, married for 4 years now, and Lifeway, has invested a lot into me. So it's been a huge benefit to be a part of this church body and to be on staff here. And so I'm so thankful for them and for all of their support and for them pouring into me. So that'd probably be my blanket thank you.
We're about to wrap up, but is there anything you wanted to bring up or ask or anything that's on your heart?
Man, Not really. I mean, I've enjoyed this. I think it's been a lot of fun. What do you guys normally talk about? So are you guys always just interviewing people?
For the most part, yeah. We are actually, while Sawyer's here, we're going to be starting up a podcast that's going to run in between our interviews. and we're going to invite interviewers back with us to play a D&D game with us.
Nice.
So, yeah, we're gonna have lots of fun with that type of stuff.
Yeah, totally.
But it's anyone that it's anyone that makes a creative impact on their community or just an artist, a band.
For sure.
Yeah, we mainly try to interview people that are just creative. They need support. Where people can support them. Just if my broad statement is if you're bringing color into the world, let's talk about it.
Mm-hmm. That's cool.
It's a good catchphrase.
Cool.
Good to wrap up.
Yeah, sure.
All right. So
hold on. First, Kevin, where can people find you?
Yeah, great question. So my wife and I have a website. It's just kevinandrachelperry.com. So I mean, hit us up there. I'm Kevin Daniel Perry on Instagram and Facebook, I think. Full name using it. So yeah, hit me up on Instagram and our website.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Kevin, for joining us. Thank you for joining us on Creators Anonymous. We are asking for your help if you know someone that deserves to have their story told or have any questions about supporting this creator or any others who we have interviewed. You can find me at Sawyer_stories.
I'm Seth. You can find me on Twitter at SethCunning09.
Let me know. I'm James. Let me know on Twitter if there's anybody that interests you. You can find me at CreatorZanon, creators with a Z. You can also email me at creatorzanon@gmail.com. And you can chat with me live in the Cast Junkie Discord server anytime. Message me for an invite. And until next time, guys, stay creative.